Hello, everyone. Welcome to another RodaTalks. My name is Renan. You guys know me from Roda de Ginástica. And I'm here tonight with Carl from Axel Lips. You know him also from Instagram. Hi, Carl.
Hello. Thanks for having me back again.
Yes, and tonight we have a very special guest. He is a member of Team Bulgaria, NCAA champion, and a former U.S. national champion as well. Eddie Penev, welcome to RodaTalks.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Nice. Thank you for accepting our invitation. First question is, both you and your young brother, Kevin, you guys are professional athletes, professional gymnasts, and your parents were also former gymnasts, right? So
Yeah.
we can say this is pretty much like a family business for you.
Honestly, yes.
So how was it to grow up in a gymnastics family, and how was the beginning for you in the sport?
Okay, well, so my parents moved to America after I was born, and they started off as coaches, and they were coaching at gyms in New York or at a gym in New York, and they couldn't like afford babysitters or anything like that. So I would come to the gym with them, and I would kind of watch them coach, and I would mimic the other kids and just teach myself gymnastics. If I'm being honest, my parents never really wanted me to be a gymnast. They try to get me involved in like other things, but I had so much fun when I would go to the gym, just like having, like they were there for like hours at a time, and I would just have pretty much free time just to like play around. So it happened. They never really pushed me into it, but I kind of naturally fed into it.
Which I think that's cool. I find a lot of parents, when they have a profession, they almost never want their child to go into that profession. I find that all the time. So it's really funny.
Yeah, they knew how hard the sport is, and just like, just the amount of hours and like the injuries, and it's an incredibly difficult sport. So they knew very well, and so they weren't like super keen on me doing it.
But it kind of didn't work that much that they didn't want you to be a gymnast. Like both you and Kevin.
Yeah, I think by the time Kevin came around, it was kind of like, okay, they'd already given up on like, they're like, he's going to be a gymnast probably.
Fair enough.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question about that? When did it turn from like you're playing around in the gym and you're just kind of having fun teaching yourself, whatever version of skills you do back when you're a child? When did it switch from you playing around to you actually like starting to learn how to do gymnastics?
I mean, well, I like taught myself a lot by imitation. Like I was doing, double backs like on the trampoline when I was like probably 6 or 7, but they didn't actually like start. They didn't put me in competitions until maybe I was like 8 or 9, and I started in like, instead of starting in like, let's say like level 4, I started in like level 6. But yeah, I was like 8 or 9 when I started competing. I was like begging them for so long to let me compete, but they kind of were just like hold off. It's like, yeah.
That's cool. No, I think I find that really interesting. That's cool that you, even at a young age, like really wanted to do it. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So the next question we wanted to ask is, so you were originally born in Sofia, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you represented Bulgaria from like the 2007 to 2011 era or of time, and then you switched to represent the United States up until this most recent quad. Then you now represent Bulgaria again. Can you talk about like the distinct like the moments of you like switching and like the differences between the two and just like that process?
Yeah. So in the beginning, so I when I first represented Bulgaria, I was still in high school. Like Bulgaria, the first time around, it was like kind of an opportunity to go on the international stage before I went to college.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I have citizenship by birth, so they, offered, for me to go out there and like train with the national team and see if I wanted to do some of these bigger competitions. And it was so cool because I got to do like European championships and world championships prior to coming to and going into the NCAA. So it gave me this invaluable experience. And it, like, you know, I was all of a sudden like, you know, instead of competing just in America at like nationals being like the premier competition, I was competing at like Euros and Worlds with some of the best guys that I've watched, like have been watching on TV. And it really helped my gymnastics. And then when I got to college, you know, I kept, you know, progressing, and a lot of my teammates at Stanford were training for the national team. And also I was academically like really bound to the school. So it became really hard to fulfill like obligations with Bulgaria and do all that traveling. So we took a chance, like, and, you know, I tried out for the U.S. national team. I think in my first U.S. championship was like maybe 2012. And then, yeah, I was on the national team, you know, from 2012 to 2022. So like 10 years is a long time. Like, and
Yes.
then now this most recent switch, you know, might get into this later, but I got injured before Tokyo, and I was kind of unsure about whether I wanted to continue gymnastics or not. And the program that I was training at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, that kind of shut down. And so I was really on the fence of if I wanted to continue. I didn't want to finish on an injury. And so we kind of rolled the dice. Beginning of 2023, and, you know, switched back to Bulgaria. And it was a pretty easy switch because I hadn't competed for a year because of the injury.
Yeah.
So changing back was like pretty easy. And yeah, and now we're here.
That's cool. I want to say real quick, I think that's amazing that you were in like the USA program for so long. Like, as someone who is from the United States and I follow the sport really closely, I kind of always have, and we're around the same age. Like, that is a feat within itself. So so kudos to you for honestly staying in the US program for that long and all the change that went through in that time.
I've seen so much in USA gymnastics. It's so 10 years. I can't even, like, sometimes I'm like, wow, it was really that long. But yeah, no, I learned a lot. I have nothing but respect for their program, and I have like such fond memories, really close friends of the national team. Yeah, really grateful for my time there.
That's cool. I love hearing that.
Yeah, and also, like as we mentioned before, you debuted internationally in 2007 for Bulgaria,
Yeah.
and we had the biggest Bulgarian legend, Yordan Yovtchev, getting to the 2008 Olympics, which means that you guys competed together. You guys were teammates, right?
Yeah.
So how was it?
Yeah, so when I started, he was kind of towards the end of his career, but yeah, he was such an inspiration because I had watched him for many, many years in the sport. But beyond that, he competed with like my dad because he was in gymnastics for quite some time. So I knew him growing up. We would see him at, I don't know, competitions throughout the year. He was like a family friend. And so then it was very different to like go to Bulgaria while he's competing, you know, and now he's like my teammate and someone who I looked up to, someone who I've known since I was a little kid. And yeah, no, just a legend in the sport. So such a consistent competitor, and and a huge inspiration.
That's amazing. Like I have a friend from Bulgaria. He's not any like gymnastics related or anything, but he knows Yordan Yovtchev. He says like this guy is like our sports legend.
Yeah, no, he is. When you go to Bulgaria, if you talk to anybody, they know him. He is as close as you get to an A-list celebrity, you could say.
Yeah.
That's cool. So at the first stage, representing Bulgaria, you made the floor final in both 2009 Euros and in the 2010 Worlds in Rotterdam. You always showed a natural talent on floor, which obviously carried through your entire career, in my opinion. How are these experiences for you, like so early in your like more elite career?
Well, it was in the beginning. It was like I was so intimidated. Like I said, I had come from like junior Olympic gymnastics. Like competing at nationals was like a big deal. Like I said, so going to like that first Worlds was just like I was like a deer in headlights. But it helped me so much because I experienced gymnastics like on a whole new level, and so then and then making those finals, like those were in the beginning, like very unexpected, especially like Euros, because that was my first European Championships. I think it was like 18 at the time. So it I can't even describe it. It was I was competing against people like, again, like I couldn't believe it. To make it to the finals with all these incredible guys was like wild for me. And I think it helped so much as I transitioned into college at that time, because I think I looked at competitions very differently, and I think the experience like made me a much stronger competitor, less intimidated, especially as a freshman, because when you go into college, it's a bit of an adjustment, and it can be challenging.
Definitely. Yeah, it's interesting watching NCAA and then elite gymnastics, and especially now where there's more athletes doing both, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, on the men's side, there always was. Like on the men's side, you were kind of like, as you enter like college is when you start like vying for a spot on the national team potentially. So.
And it also comes with the minimum age, right? Because for girls it's 16, so they're still not in college. But for guys to compete internationally as adults, as seniors, it's 18, so it's already like college age, right?
Yeah, I honestly didn't know what like that there was an age limit. I know at my first World Championships I was 17. I think. Yeah. No, yeah, I was 17. So but I don't know. It's the rules could have like changed since then. That was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, because I think if I remember correctly, I feel like it's like, yeah, if you're turning 18 within like the year, you're turning 16 within the year. So there's those times where you're like, for on the women's side, like 15-year-olds could compete if they're going to be 16. So yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's like it has changed. On the men's side, I'm pretty sure, because I wasn't even turning 18 that year. Like I had just turned 17 like days before the World Championship.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think. Like I'm 17 is very far back for me as well. And I can't imagine putting myself in a position like to be in a World Championships being that young. So I whenever I think of athletes now that I'm older, I'm like, I can't believe what these athletes are doing at such a young age.
Yeah, no, it is pretty incredible, especially on the women's side. I think like because they start really early. I remember like when I was on the U.S. team, like watching some of those junior gymnasts, like what they were doing, the junior girls. Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
at like 13, like I was like, whoa.
Yeah, no, it's true. Especially they pushed, especially back when age was more important, and like I feel like on the women's side, especially with USA Gymnastics, was preferring, they had a preference of younger gymnasts back then. And yeah, it's crazy to think of like 12-year-olds like throwing 2.5 Yurchenko 2.5s and stuff like that. It's wild.
I remember watching some of those at like my first US championships, and I was like, oh my gosh. I think there's also been a little bit of a shift since then. I think for the better, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like also when you decided to go for Rio 2016, you switched in that spot to the US, and you said in an interview that you chose the hard path, right? Because you meant that actually there was more competitiveness to make the team in the US. So naturally. But also this squad was very challenging for you because of injuries. And yeah, unfortunately, like it didn't happen. But what did you take as learnings, right, for personal growth or as an athlete?
Yeah, so the 2016 quad, that was I tore my ACL at the Pan American Championships in 2014, and then after that I moved to the Olympic Training Center, and that was such like a huge shift for me as an athlete, because I was training with some of the best guys in the country day in and day out, and so I knew going into 2016 that it was going to be very challenging because we were so deep as a team. I saw it every day in the gym, but it really pushed me and made me like the best. I think that was the strongest all-arounder I ever was during that quad. just because, I knew floor and vault, like, I was right up there in the mix with like the top guys, but, I had to like push my other events. And it was an incredible experience. I think realistically for that quad, I was kind of shooting for an alternate position. And I thought maybe depending on how things go, I would continue, which I ultimately did. But that was probably some of like the strongest training I've ever experienced, and some of like the most like competitive but like friendly and like environments I've ever been in.
Outside of, because you mentioned floor and vault, outside of floor and vault back in that quad, was there an event that you and your coach or like anybody like really wanted you to focus on, like besides floor and vault?
It was always pommel horse and high bar. We like, because US was like historically like a little weak back then on horse, so we were always pushing horse. And I was an all-arounder all through like my junior and senior year of college, so we were pushing everything as much as we could. I got third at NCAA's one year in the all-around, so did pretty decent at some World Cups on horse, so, and high bar. But those were like horse, high bar, floor, and vault were the ones we were really, really pushing.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I know that feels so long ago now, that quad. I can't imagine how it feels.
Yeah, it's hard to remember. Yeah.
Kind of going, so beginning the next quad. So in 2017, you go to Montreal for World Championships and you're representing the United States. So you, in qualifications, you have an incredible floor. You place 6, but of course, the 2 per country rule was in effect, so you couldn't actually compete in the final. I feel like this is a dilemma. I feel like this is a dilemma that several countries run into, including the United States. What goes through your mind at that point? Because you're representing the United States, you're at World Championships for mainly those 2 events, I would say, and then you just miss out on finals.
I mean, it was really hard. It was in the moment, like, I thought like it was a very fair result. I didn't actually have the cleanest performance like that I could have. And Donnell and Ewell like simply did better and routines, and they deserved to be in the final. And it's tough. It's a bummer. But you take solace in the fact that you were good enough, I guess. You were right up there, and I wish I could have, been a little more exact in some of my landings in qualifications. But that's, a testament to like being on a strong, a program like USA, like Team USA. There's a lot of depth, and if you got to be at your best, if you want to advance. Like, I mean, we see girls, right, getting third in the all around and not being able to compete. I can't even imagine what that's like, but I understand why the rule's in place, and in that moment it was a fair result, so it was what it was. I also think I was like 9th or like 10th on vault too, so I was like very unlucky. Or I was maybe 10th, and then like the one of the reserves got in, and so I was like first reserve. I remember I had to warm up vault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's interesting too, because from my memory, and Danelle and Yule have two like such different floor exercises. I feel like Yule really hones in on the E score, and he's like really clean, and Danelle throws like just ridiculously difficult skills, which I've been lucky enough to see them both, and you actually compete live, and yeah, it's amazing to see how different floor can be. That's a really fun event to watch because of that.
Yeah, no, yes, like any event, there's like really a strategy. You have to have enough difficulty, but then you could really focus on the E score, or you could just like jam pack your routine like Kenzo, and not really have to worry too much about like landings and stuff like that.
That's true.
Absolutely. Like, you also had a very successful career in NCAA at Stanford. What were the highlights for you, and how different would you say it is to compete NCAA and college? Like, to compete college and elite?
Oh, okay. So I guess highlights. I think like the biggest highlight, without a shadow of a doubt, for me is like winning. Like 2011, we won the team championship. it was one of those moments where it was really interesting for me because it was my sophomore year and it was not my strongest year. I had broken or sprained, like a really bad sprain in my midfoot, like 5-6 weeks before nationals. So all I wanted to do was like compete, and I did not train at all until like a couple of days before the competition, and I was just like I wanted to be a part of that team so bad because I knew we had such a good shot. Like they could have won without me, but I was very grateful the coach like Tom let me compete, and winning that team title meant more than any of like the individual titles I had won throughout my NCAA career. It was just, all that work you put in, and like from day one, like, all your team meetings are about how do we put ourselves in a position to like win NCAAs, and to see it like happen that year was incredible. So that's definitely the highlight. There's other individuals. I had won a couple. I don't even remember. I think a lot of All-Americans and some NCAA titles in there, and those were great too. But all the team championships, team finals was always just like the highlight of the year. And as for the difference between college and elite, and the men's side, I don't really think there's that much of a difference. Like, Team USA on the elite side really does, like, our number one priority has always been the team competition and building a sense of like camaraderie within, the team. So you can, go full out for, that team medal. They've always been shooting. That's like number one, more than like individual medalists or what have you.
And another question that I have, what motivated you to choose it? Like the academics or gymnastics or both?
It was definitely a combination of both. Throughout high school, like my parents, like I never did like anything like homeschooling or anything. My parents really emphasized that, like, getting a good education. And I always was very, just as much as I was like, competitive in the gym, I was like pretty, like, I really want to do well in school. And so Stanford just offered the best of both worlds. And I didn't know if I was going to get in because, like, prior to like the recruiting starting, like they were like, oh, you have to have like perfect grades, and even if you have perfect grades and great like test scores, it doesn't mean you're going to get in. Sometimes it's just so competitive. And so I was kind of surprised that I got in, but when I did, like, I wasn't like sure if I wanted to go there because it was so far away from home. And it was not really until I visited the school and like saw the campus and like met the team and saw everything that they have to offer was when I like was really sold on it.
I love that. I'm actually a teacher myself, so I love that your athletics were important, but I also love that your academics were really important. So I think kudos to you for going for it, because Stanford is is a very difficult school to get into.
Yeah, it is quite difficult. I mean, definitely, like, I'm not gonna, like, full disclosure, it definitely helps to like be recruited and be, going onto a team, but that, I think, at Stanford can only do so much because we've had some like phenomenal gymnasts who we wanted to recruit, who unfortunately, didn't get in.
Oh, no, that makes sense, because I feel like a lot of people assume, like, if you're, a D1 athlete or a really successful athlete, that you'll kind of just get the pick of wherever you want to go. But the reality is there's also the other side of it too. You have to still get accepted based on their rubric.
Yeah, it's definitely not the case with Stanford, or at least, or when I was being recruited, it was definitely not the case.
When speaking of Stanford, and the team, because you mentioned how important the team final is, or just team championships in general. So we had a couple guys from Stanford on this last U.S. Olympic team, and they won the bronze team medal. So what was your reaction to that? Especially, we have Brody and Asher who went to Stanford, and then they pulled it off. So what was your thoughts at the time?
I was just so happy for them. Like, we at like our Team USA, the U.S. team has been so good for so many quads. Like, and I think the last medal was in 2000. Team medal was in 2008, and they were good enough every quad since then to get it. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out in team finals. And, to see it finally come back in 2000 or in Paris, it was just incredible. They deserved it. They had such incredible performances. I think they hit every routine. And I out of all the teams, I think maybe they were the only one to do that. And so that medal was so deserved, and I'm just so happy for them. And obviously the Stanford guys, it's great for the program to have Olympians, and not only Olympians, now Olympic medalists. They train so hard over there. I have so much respect for that program.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree, and it's been great from the being from the United States. It's been great to see men's gymnastics being celebrated like nationally, which has been really nice. Because I love men's gymnastics, and I feel like in recent years, colleges have been cutting back on men's gymnastics quite a bit, as there's been a lot of conversations about that. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be in Paris and watch men's team final, and I knew in that moment I was like, wow, like this could potentially be a huge changing moment in the United States for men's gymnastics. So that was, I was really happy, of course, for them first, but also like longevity. I'm hoping it kind of brings life back.
I really hope so. I really hope these like universities and these programs are taking note, because it is so incredibly hard to do that to men's gymnastics is so competitive. And for these guys to, first of all, make the Olympic team, coming from with all the stresses of school and academics and all that, to make an Olympic team, then come back with a medal in men's gymnastics, that is huge. And I hope those universities value that and see that these programs definitely deserve a place at their university.
For sure. Shifting gears a little bit to not as happy of a subject. So in 2021, you had unfortunately your third ACL tear, which prevented you from competing at the Olympic trials in St. Louis. So coming off of your national championship floor and vault title. And then earlier this year, a shoulder injury forced you to withdraw from the Doha World Cup, which meant the end of this Olympic qualification. So it goes without saying, it's pretty heartbreaking. Like, I personally have, of course, never been an elite athlete very close to an Olympics, but kind of, if you're comfortable with, talk about your thoughts behind all that, because I can't imagine having it happen twice.
Yeah. I mean, I think the bottom line is it's devastating. I think so. Before Tokyo, I think that it's weird. I was still kind of on the older side, but I think that was probably the best shape I'd ever been in my life. Probably did the best floor routine of my life at U.S. championships, highest score I've ever gotten at a big competition. And I really thought, okay, I was this is my shot. We have the specialist spot, and I vault's right there too. And I was just training an upgraded vault, and I was doing it at a mock meet inter squad 2 days before Olympic trials, and landed a little short, or 2 days before we left for Olympic trials. Landed a little short, and there it happened. It was shocking. It took me a long time. I mean, to be honest, I don't think you ever get over it, but I was really grateful for the people around me, and the friends and family I have, who really helped me through that time. Because that was I thought, that's it. I didn't want to have anything to do with gymnastics for a long time. Spent a lot of time on the road in Colorado, camping and hiking and trying to get my mind off of everything that had happened. And then getting surgery and having to go through that recovery. So that one, that one was devastating for me. This time around, might sound bad. Well, basically what happened was I dislocated my shoulder 2 weeks before the last Olympic qualifier, the last World Cup. And I was in a really good position to get that floor quota. And the reason that happened was because I had been training, you saw me competing on floor and vault, but I was training the all around. So first time in many years, because if let's say the World Cups, I didn't earn that quota, I had another opportunity at the European Championships, like the following week, to earn a quota through the all around. And so we kind of just wanted to have both doors open. So, it happened. I dislocated my shoulder, which I had had surgery on it before. We tried for those 2 weeks before to like do every therapy imaginable to like just be able to do a floor routine in Doha, but it didn't happen. And this kind of sounds horrible to say, but like after going through it once, you're kind of like, at least for me, I was a little desensitized to it. Like I was still very upset, but I felt like, well, been through this. I'm like a pro at trauma. so I was like, I think it was a little, maybe slightly easier to deal with, but yeah, still rough.
Oh, no, for sure. And I appreciate you even saying that, because again, it's always hard to talk about, to use your word, trauma. And yeah, I was there in Fort Worth in 2021 championships, and yeah, your floor was, just to give you some kudos, like your floor was insane. Like being there live and being able to watch it, I was like, whoa, like it was. And then I think it was like the next day, USA Gymnastics or some Instagram like compared you and Simone Biles triple double, which I was like, yeah, you should. They're both insane.
They did that. They did it at Olympic trials.
But, okay, gotcha.
But I didn't even know full disclosure, did not watch Olympic trials, and I was like out. Like I would like one of the things, like I love to like hike and camp in Colorado. So I was out in the middle of like nowhere doing, some camping or beautiful hiking. I don't know. And like when I finally got back to civilization, everyone was like sending me like the video and like, like, by the way, they compared you. And I was like, oh, okay. Kind of cool.
For sure.
And like, I'm from Brazil, so we had a big like story with injuries. Rebecca, she tore her ACL 3 times.
Yes, she's like, my inspiration with that. Like, I'm like, hey, you can still do it.
Jade Barbosa, she just tore her ACL for the 4th time again. Like,
oh, is that what happened? I didn't realize.
Yeah, like
I saw she had surgery, but I didn't know what.
Yeah, for the 4th time. So they always say that it's not like it's easy to cope with the injury, better than the last time.
Yeah, no, I would agree with it. The first time I tore it, I thought like, this is it, my career's over. I'm a floor and vault guy. I just tore my ACL, and so then I went to the Olympic Training Center and did such good like physical therapy, and did so much, like I learned so much about just body mechanics and like strength training, and doing all like incorporating physical therapy, that like it really helped me. Like I was like, after like the first ACL tear, I was like better on floor and vault when I got back. And then like when it happened again, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to repeat this process and do it even like I felt like every time I was trying to do my therapy better than the last time. Yeah.
And especially, and again, I'm coming from a place where I have not been a gymnast my whole life. I can imagine also like being a gymnast for so many years at this point. Like I can imagine like with time and like maintenance on your body, like I'm assuming your strategy and like just overall care has to change with time.
Oh yeah, I go into the gym and the first hour and a half of practice is like physical therapy, and just like rehab exercises, and just making sure everything's like firing. Yeah.
Every day. Oh, well, for sure. Well, Jaji Barbosa was brought up, and she's, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe she's 33, and again, she's another person who's been doing gymnastics for her whole life, basically, at this point. So it's incredible. Like athletes like you guys who truly just keep going and going, like it's incredible.
Yeah, super kudos to her. I remember her watching her in 2007. I'm pretty sure she like medaled in the all around in Stuttgart.
Yeah, she was a bronze medalist.
Yeah. So I remember watching. So like huge kudos. Like it's, and for them to win a medal at the Olympics, I know they've been shooting for that for so long, and she's been in it. So that's really cool. And then Rebecca, like 3 ACL tears in like a very short, like pretty, like I think it's only like 3 or 4 years.
It was
Like,
2017, 15, 17, 19.
wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, and it's to see like the kind of gymnastics she was doing this quad in Tokyo. It, you know, huge like inspiration, and even to me, I was like, wow. Okay.
And Jade, she speaks of coming back next year.
Yeah.
Like, girl, please just take a rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely heal up first, but I mean, they did so much for the program. I know
Yes.
this quad, so I can understand like the pull and the drive towards it.
Mm-hmm.
When like and coming up to like more recent events, so you competed in Germany recently, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys got a silver in team finals, and you've been training, or you at least been posting on socials like some skills that you're throwing in the gym. So I guess in general, like how is the last few months been? Like how is training skills and all the more recent events?
Well, honestly, all that stuff has been really starting to click like probably in the last like 4 weeks, because like I had surgery at the very beginning of May. I didn't really start any sort of gymnastics until September, because you have to like wait for like the biological processes to happen, and to like your shoulder to stabilize, and then getting your strength back. And I competed floor and vault in Germany, and I wanted to do that competition just to finish the year on my own terms and like a different note, instead of like with a dislocated shoulder like right before the last Olympic qualifier. So this was like an opportunity to do something, to finish the year different. And I wasn't sure how much I would be able to do, because I had only been really training routines for like maybe 3-4 weeks before the competition. And for the most part, it went really well. I was super pleased. The league has gotten really, really strong, and there's probably like 40 plus teams. So to end up in second was a really big deal. And to compete with like so many Olympians, and it meant so much to me. It was one of the more like significant moments in my career, honestly, just because of the injury, and being able to finish 2024 a little bit different.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm happy. Like, I'm happy you have this to hold on to versus like. And then I went hiking for 3 weeks because couldn't even look at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm happy for you that you got at least this out of it. I love that you, again, like years and years into your career, have like a career highlight as recent as this year, which I think is
it was a gamble. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but the show. I did again. I really did a lot of physical therapy with the shoulder. I've had shoulder surgery before, so I knew like the process, and I kind of estimated that by like the 7th month, 6th month, I should be able to do some floor and vault. And like I did a full, like the first competition, I did like my full difficulty floor routine from like from earlier this year. And yeah, it was cool. And then I started, and like when I was there, I started like training some skills like for potentially for like the next season. Yeah.
interesting. That's a little tidbit. I love that.
Yes.
Yes.
And Eddie, looking back now, what was your favorite meet to compete so far? And where? Like an arena? Let's say
Oh,
like
an
that.
arena. Okay. Obviously, there's like the NC, like in the NCAA's, there was like team finals 2011. That was like that like, energy and everything was electric because we won. Internationally, honestly, the coolest arena, Baku, the World Cup in Baku, super cool arena, really big. But also the 2011 World Championships in Tokyo.
It's okay.
Yeah, really, really, really cool arena, really cool environment. That gymnastics is such a big sport over there, and the fans really turn out.
Actually, you're not the first person to answer the Baku arena.
Mm-hmm.
We had an interview in our regular podcast here with the Brazilian photographer. He's now working for the FIG, Ricardo Buffolin. You might know him, or I don't know. But he said that the best arena was the Baku arena.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, like, guys, you have no idea. It's so big. It's so big. It's like it was built for gymnastics.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. They have like it's like they have like the arena's so big that they have to like cut the gym in half because they have the other side, which is for rhythmic competitions and rhythmic training on podium. It was something else. Like I've seen an arena that big.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to see it in person one day.
Yeah.
And like in talking about different arenas and different competitions, kind of talking a little bit more about 2024 until we like look forward. I was curious because I know earlier this year you were very candid on social media about like the point system.
Oh,
And of course, like I know this is like a podcast that will be like, posted, of course, so, like whatever you're comfortable with. What are your thoughts behind that whole thing? I know myself and other gymnastics fans I have in my life
yeah.
talked a lot about that.
No, I mean, it's out there. I still like, I meant what I said, meant what I posted. So like, I still believe what I said. I mean, it really is a tough situation. And it didn't just affect me; it affected other athletes too. It's just like the inconsistencies, basically, of, you're going to these World Cups, trying to qualify, and the fact that you can lose points towards your Olympic qualification because pre-qualified athletes are there just doesn't make sense. Of course, we want those athletes to be there. Everyone should be at these competitions. It's hard to create a whole separate series just for athletes vying for Olympic qualification. But at least like pull those athletes out and just assign all the points. And then whoever's like, just keep it consistent. The problem was like the inconsistency. So like, so in Baku, for instance, I ended up fourth on floor, really competitive field, best World Cup for me. But because I was second out of the athletes trying to earn a quota, so I got the points for second place. Okay, so in Coppus, I finish 17th. Really strong competition, 70-something people on floor. Wasn't my best routine. I finished 17th, tied for 16th, but because the tiebreaker is 17th. But I was 7th out of the athletes vying for an Olympic spot. So that amounted to like X amount of points. And so I thought, oh, okay, cool. I'm getting my 7th place points. Just how in Baku, I got my like 2nd place points when I was 4th. There's this like random arbitrary rule that if you're below 16th, you don't get any points. Even if you're first, even if all 16 athletes in front of you are qualified to the Olympics. The FIG needs to like look at this and be like, okay, this is such like a simple fix. Like why, like what is the justification for such like what seems like a completely arbitrary rule? I'm sorry, it's not fair. I'm just gonna stick with that. And honestly, those points that I lost would have qualified me to the Olympics. Even if I'd still gotten hurt, didn't compete in Doha, I would have had enough points to qualify to Tokyo or to Paris.
Well, no, and I'm happy you're still standing with this because again, like you're not just an athlete that's like, oh, I'm just gonna take my chance and then move on. Like you've gone through so many Olympic quads, like you know the process so well, you know the sport so well, and I love that you posted that because I think arbitrary rules
just doesn't make sense. Like I'm sorry,
there's
no logic.
For sure, I 100% agree, and I feel like the FIG is obsessed with arbitrary rules, and and when in the last podcast that we recorded, we talked about how if you make an Olympic Games and you do like let's say qualifications all around, you're only really competing actively for like several minutes, and that's it. So you're training your whole life for like a couple minutes of like actual competition time, and like the fact, in my opinion, I'm only speaking for myself now. In my opinion, I completely agree with everything you said because the rules are arbitrary, and also I don't think that people that have already been qualified should have counted towards any of the points, or underneath or below 16th doesn't count. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it should be all relative. It should be all relative to how you stack up against the athletes vying, for spots. Because like at some World Cups, you might get like 5 Olympic champions like who show up. At another World Cup, there might be none. Like it's like really you don't know who's going to come to these competitions, who's not. Although I will say the 2024 like World Cup series was super strong because a lot of these qualified athletes were using these competitions as preparation for the Olympic Games and kind of to test some of those routines, which I totally understand. Just like put their results aside and just rank us. Seems so obvious to me. I don't know.
No, I 100% agree, and I also, again, this is a selfish thing. And it's also opinion. I also just wish that there were more athletes at Olympic Games. Like I think that's why I love World Championships so much, because there's just so many more opportunities, gymnast countries that are there. And again, I think a strict cutoff and strict rules, like if you place below 16, then it's a wash. So no, and I appreciate you saying that, because people that say things, again, it's going to encourage other people to start thinking and saying things, so that maybe there's change that comes. So again, kudos to you for saying that.
Hopefully it gets the FIG to think a little bit too.
Oh yeah, hopefully, because there are some things that they need to change.
Yeah, among other things. Yes, there's other things too, but yeah, this is the one that I experienced the most recently. But we can go into a whole podcast about that.
Exactly. What would you say is the current stage of Bulgarian gymnastics? What would you say that they need to do in order to improve?
Okay, well, I'm going to start with saying that Bulgaria has a lot of talented gymnasts. Yeah. I think it's, creating a consistent training program and a more centralized system, I think would really help. If we could get those athletes to be at the National Training Center year-round, training together would really help, because Bulgaria has some really talented gymnasts, I'm going to say it. And they have like the potential and the goods to be, finalists, for instance, at like the European Championships in the team. So, it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of restrictions, funding, all that stuff, but the talent's there.
I love that. And I know we've talked a lot, I should say I've talked a lot with just people in my life that follow gymnastics, or even on this podcast, about how there's a lot of talent in so many places in the world, but when it comes to like the politics of the organization or like the funding, like it's really unfortunate that there's so much talent that will never be seen. So
yeah, or it's just like cultivating talent, and like, when the potential's there, you really get from a young age, you got to really work with these kids, especially like the junior national team. It's so important to like be so hands-on and so involved with like every aspect of their training, so they can, move into the senior ranks. And you constantly want like them to be pushing the older guys, and us to be like imparting our wisdom on them. And yeah, just because being a cohesive unit, which I experienced a lot of with Team USA.
And also, like in the women's side, we have Georgieva. She qualified in vault for this Olympics, and she made the event final. So it was super nice. I was rooting for her. I even texted her on Instagram like, "Hey, congratulations!"
Yeah. She again, another amazing story, because she had an ACL tear at the European Championships 22. Yeah, 22. So yeah, it was a really good, like, huge comeback for her. It took her a while to, recover from that, not just physically, but also mentally, because it's pretty traumatic when it happens at like, in an event final at a major competition. It's tough. And she really worked hard. Like, she was doing the World Cup series with me, and she was doing slightly easier vaults, and then she was kind of getting better and better each competition, and then she kind of really peaked in Paris. She had like upgraded so much from like February to the Olympics in whenever it was, July. So really proud of her and her effort.
Yes, I remember that I was actually in that European Championships in 2022 in Munich, and I saw her getting injured. Like it was really bad. Like I even
Yeah.
saw later in the TV, it was as bad as in person as well. But I was really happy that she managed to recover and everything. Super proud of her.
Yeah. So yeah, super proud of her to come back and do that because she wasn't doing the Yunchenko double full at the beginning of the year. I think like mentally it was very hard for her. And then in Paris she was doing it better than ever. I think she can even like do a 2.5. So yeah.
I love that. And with your experience, what's the biggest difference or like multiple differences between training for Bulgaria versus training for the United States?
I mean, okay. The biggest okay. The biggest difference I think is like that kind of cohesive team unit. The focus on the team like is so, a lot of times Bulgaria, I think they don't some of the athletes maybe and the coaches don't believe that they could be a strong team. So everyone's kind of like focused on, getting the best result for themselves. When if you step back and look at how many we have more talented gymnasts than some of these countries that maybe place higher than us. And so if we can, bring that together, I think, that is like the biggest difference. Obviously there's also funding and all that. It's quite different. But those are like in a lot of ways there are like similarities too. I don't know, but focus on the team is like the biggest difference, and I keep coming back to that.
Would you personally want Bulgaria to focus more on team and building that cohesion? Do you think that would benefit?
I mean, I don't think like focusing on a team result right away, but building like a cohesive unit within training, structuring the like practices around like, we do like as simple as like a team warm up, team basics, those kind of things, the little things. Doing more training camps, the summer is not, it's not like gymnastics is a year-round sport. So like summer is not necessarily like a break. It's like what the time that you use to like get better and to do new skills for like the next season or learn new skills, I should say.
No, that totally makes sense. I hear that for sure.
And also, like Bulgaria uses Gymnova, right? Gymnova equipment.
Oh, they have both.
They use both. Which one do you prefer? Because we interviewed some athletes, they don't like Gymnova at all. Some of them like, but some of them they prefer PS for like miles.
Okay. Well, I remember doing gymnastics like on floors at international competitions where there was no springs. So I like both. I love both. Like both sets of equipment. They're a little bit different here and there, but like overall, I think it's for me having experienced so many different types of equipment. I think it's hard for me to say which is different. Like the white floor definitely makes things a little bit different, but I think all the apparatus are good because I've been through. Honestly, my favorite is Seno, like Japan. That floor is like you can fall on your face and it doesn't hurt. Like, but I remember when the floors did not have springs at some international competition. So if it has springs, we're good.
Do you remember, by chance, which competitions had no springs on the floor?
I'm pretty sure the old Spieth, which was like JF or Janssen and Fritzen. I think in Rotterdam, I don't know if there was like springs.
Seriously?
Yeah, I don't know. I really, because that floor in the back, you could not tumble in the warm up gym. If it was like on the podium, between the adrenaline and like being on podium, it was like manageable. But I remember in the back gym, I don't think I could do like a tuck double. Like that, I don't think I ever did one. But I think also in Stuttgart, that first World Championships, that floor was hard.
When there were a lot of falls, at least from what I remember on the women's side. I mean, even Jaji Barbosa fell in the all-around on floor, and she still medaled, thankfully. But yeah, there was a lot of falls in that World Championship.
Yes.
That's funny to hear.
I think both like equipment like sets are great though,
Okay.
and Seno being my favorite.
And like, it's funny because a lot of people don't know about it, but Rebecca, she went to the 2021 Worlds in Kitakyushu,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't go for all around because she didn't do floor.
Mm.
But the thing is that she did, it was because it was Taishan.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've actually
She,
never tumbled. I would have in Doha, but I've never used it.
yeah, because Taishan is, the word says, it's the worst of the worst, like in terms of being hard. But yeah.
I'd love to take some of these athletes back to like 2007. Yeah, no. But yes, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not. I've heard that too. It's not the best, but I've also heard it. They're like also trying to improve.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because like in Doha, I talked to some of the athletes that competed, and especially in the floor, and they said it was like all right. They might have improved it since 2001 because that was, I mean, that's like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But
And
I've
also
never
like,
heard. It's probably the only equipment I've never used.
yeah, and also like she was coming back from injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tokyo was the first time she actually did an all around
Mm.
after her ACL in 2019, and I think they were playing safe. It was like, I can focus on the other events though.
Yeah. No. I think after all that success in Tokyo, better like I think she knew. Also, I'm sure that she's going for another
Yeah,
quad. So
definitely.
sometimes it's okay to forego some opportunities.
Do you have, I mean, because we're talking about all these different competitions. I mean, at this point, going back, gosh, 17 years, 2007 is like 17 years ago, which is crazy. Do you have any cool stories or like funny stories about any athletes that you met that are like public, that you feel comfortable sharing publicly?
I mean, funny stories. Oh, I don't know how many I can share,
That's
but
fair.
but I will say like the athletes I met like competing with like Kohei Uchimura, and like that is such like I was so starstruck, especially in 2010. I was like, oh, I was like the coach like Eddie, you got to pay attention. You can't just be like watching him. Like you gotta like go too. I think really cool was like I was competing in the Toyota Cup in 2015, and he was sitting because he was there. I think he maybe did high bar or something, but he was there like as I was about to like start floor, and he like pulled up his iPad and was like recording within like I don't know 10 feet of me, and I'm like sitting there like oh my gosh, this like he's like recording my routine. This is like better be like the best routine of my life. I thought I was just so like humbled, starstruck. I was like, this is crazy. But yeah, I think that those kind of stories.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if there's anything that's gonna motivate or I guess scare the crap out of you, to do well is Kohei Uchimura filming you compete.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, I'll never forget that one.
And also, like, I just saw that I skipped the question. It's about the Penev on floor, your eponymous skill. It's a double layout Arabian with a half twist, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
here in Brazil, we have Daiane dos Santos.
Yep.
She did a double layout Arabian, but they did it with a turn, which is like amazing.
Yeah.
How was the creative process? How did you come to that?
So when I got to college, I was training at Tamayo, which is like a layout double Arabian in the men's side. I guess Dos Santos on the women's side. Uh, so it was kind of like an awkward landing for me, like the blind landing. So my coach at Stanford, Tom Galimi, he's like, "Why don't you try to like just do a half twist at the last second?" So just to make make it not a blind landing. And I started doing it, and it was a lot easier and a little bit like definitely safer on the landing. And so when I went to the 2011 Worlds, I competed it and I got the name for it.
Nice. It's always good to have like your name in the code right now. How does it feel actually to have the Penev there?
It's cool. I think I don't really think about it much now, but I think when I am done officially from gymnastics, I think it'll be cool. Like that you're part of like the history of gymnastics and that, your name's in there. Unless, though, they do take skills out, so who knows. But I'm thinking this one might stick around. It just got upgraded in this code, so.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
awesome.
good.
What is it? What did it get upgraded to?
So it started off as an F, went down to an E, and now it's back to an F.
An E. Wow.
Yeah, last code was an E.
I personally disagree with that, but I mean, who am I? But I personally disagree with that.
Yeah. It's so many things. Yeah, skill values. We could get into that too for a whole podcast.
Oh yeah.
Like, just a curiosity. We're talking about downgrade and upgrade and everything. Like, you know that the Dos Santos one is the double Arabian piked.
Pikes, yeah.
And
2003 World.
Yeah. And Lohana Oliveira, she homologated the Dos Santos one half.
Okay.
They gave an F, just like the same, but now they downgraded. So they consider it to be the same as a Pike Tsukahara.
Yeah. No.
Which is like.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense. Anyways, we talked about a lot of things that they have to change, and this is another one of them. Like, it doesn't make any sense, honestly. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah, every quad sometimes it's baffling. Like some of the how they evaluate skills. It makes me like sometimes wonder. I'm like, do these people do gymnastics? Like.
Oh, for sure.
Exactly.
But they did. Like a lot of times, like the baffling part is that they did do gymnastics. I'm like, yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah. Eddie. Sorry.
I was just gonna ask just one more question about your skill. So I never thought I'd have the opportunity to ask this to someone who has a skill named after them. What does it feel like to, like, you're going up on the podium, you're about to throw a skill that at least internationally no one has ever competed before. I've always been curious, like, what does that feel like? I mean, I know, of course, gymnasts do routines like hundreds, thousands of times, however many times you train it. But when it's finally go time when you're about to throw the skill, like, what goes through your head? Or is it just like another day at the office?
Honestly, it was my first time competing a rollout skill on floor that time. So I wasn't even worried about the first pass. I was like, oh my gosh, please do not like fall on your back on this like Thomas, which you're competing for the first time. So I was like more worried about like the fifth pass. But no, I mean, yeah, you do think like it runs through your head that like, okay, like let's put this to our feet. So like, irrespective of the outcome of this routine, at least get in the code. But personally, I was more concerned about, like that fifth pass.
That's fair. I love that.
But I also actually submitted in 2015 at the Tokyo, at the Toyota Cup, I submitted a layout triple-double. Me, Kenzo, and one gymnast from Australia. But I ended up doing it tucked because my coach at the time, Vitali, was like, okay, Eddie, let's be safe. We still, like, next year's like because I've been training a layout triple-double. I had done it on the floor, but, So, and Kenzo, the one kid from Australia tried it. He didn't make it, and then Kenzo got it. And I ended up doing a really good tuck. I probably could have done a layout, but I was like, that skill would have been really cool.
Was that, when you say you tucked, like, were you, like, beginning your tumble and you're like, oh, I'm tucking this? Or did you plan before?
No, I talked with my coach, and he's like, no, do the tuck. Well, like, he's like, let's just be safe here. I mean, this was at the end of 2015, and we were going into like 2016 and like Winter Cup, and he's like, let's just be safe. But I had trained it so well.
Oh.
But I also was like, I remember it was one of those meets where you get there, and then the next day is like podium, and you're tired. Yeah. But I did a really good tuck triple-double for Kohei. So.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, and Kenzo's Kenzo.
Yeah. He can take a short landing and be fine. I might have to be like carried off.
It's insane.
Eddie, you just said you're done with gymnastics?
Wait, say that again?
You just said that you were like done with gymnastics? Or
no, I mean, I said when I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I am not done with gymnastics quite.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But like, what's the legacy you wanna leave behind? When you're like, okay, I wanna be remembered for this.
Honestly, resilience. I don't titles, accolades, skills, great, cool, floor, awesome. But just like the comebacks, like the adversity and like the resilience, like I've had to like show, and that, that if you really want something, you can overcome any setback.
I'm really glad I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah.
Because it's like I as I said, I really like your journey as a gymnast, and I just see a lot of potential right now in Team Bulgaria with you, with Kevin, with also Yordan Alexandrov, who also lives in the US but competes for Bulgaria. I think that you guys can achieve like really great results for Bulgaria, honestly.
Yeah.
And the next Olympics is in the US, so
Oh, I'm doing this on a month-to-month basis, but yes, that it is in the
I
U.S.,
mean,
which is like I'm like sure I'm doing gymnastics in January, but then like after that I'm not sure. No,
but
I'm
like
just kidding. The European
just
Championships is the goal, but
just
yeah,
just do the Judge Barbosa thing. She
yes.
never puts a period on it. She just said
No,
like,
yeah,
I'm keep
I
going,
don't
I'm
want to.
keep going.
Yeah, I really don't want to do that anymore because I've like thought I was done with gymnastics like probably several times, but you know, I think I think when the moment comes, I'll know and I'll like feel that. But right now, I do feel like I still have some gas in the tank, and we're gonna take it on a month to month, competition to competition
Yep.
basis.
Also, another inspiration for that is Oksana Chuzovitna. She retired like I think 10 times and came back.
Yeah, I don't know about that long, but yeah, but yeah, very huge inspiration, major kudos. I don't know how she does it. Um, she's she's phenomenal.
Do you being being in the sport for so long and going through so many quads, is there anything that you would tell like younger athletes, or any just advice that like you've learned and you've adopted as you've progressed through the sport and just in life in general? Like what would you tell younger gymnasts that are on their path?
I think in gymnastics, you know, the biggest I think if you really want to reach like a higher echelon of gymnastics, you have to be really self motivated because it's one of those sports that requires so many hours in the gym, and if you can't embrace like the struggle and the training and like really want to do it, it's going to be really challenging um, to get through all that because it's a brutal sport, and it just requires so much, and your heart I think really has to be in it, and you really have to want it for yourself. That would be like my biggest advice and what I've learned.
For sure. And it's funny because I feel like several other gymnasts that I can think of in interviews have said similar things. Like if your heart leaves the sport or your desire leaves the sport, like you're gonna have a really tough time because of how much it requires from you.
Yeah, you have to like and be able to like embrace like the struggle, like the hard times, or like injuries, setbacks, personal stuff is like that's like there's like we had a saying at Stanford that strength comes in the struggle, and that's like if you can like get through the tough days, those are the ones that are going to teach you so much more than the days where everything is just going perfectly for you. And yeah.
For sure. When did you is that something that you tried to model for your brother as he's going through his own path with gymnastics, like leading up to, of course, Paris and even before?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He also did NCAA gymnastics for a time, so he knows. I think it's a little bit sometimes unfortunate because I am almost 10 years older. So as he was getting really, as he was coming into his own in gymnastics, I was always away, but always there to like lend advice. And I think he's like seeing my career and how it's unfolded. So he's also we had the same club coach. So we were taught a lot of like the same training habits and methodologies, you could say.
Nice. I love that. That's cool.
Eddie, that was it. That was our interview with you. Thank you very much for everything, for your insights,
Yeah.
your story, for sharing your story. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, thank you
Anyways,
guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your guys' interest in my career and all things gymnastics.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, as someone who's been fortunate enough to see you compete several times, like I find it like from a fan perspective really cool. But yeah, I personally love sharing stories with resilience, and yes, you definitely would fall under that umbrella. So congratulations to you, seriously.
Thank you.
exactly, and also this nationality changes. They always hold a lot of story, a lot of stories behind it, a lot of interesting stories. And I remember that I saw you competing for the USA for the first time at the Anadia World Cup. I even mentioned to you in the message.
Yeah.
It was in 2013, and then I saw you with Bulgaria, and I was like, "Oh, interesting! Like that name, Penev, actually like makes sense, you know."
Yeah, I've
But
done
then
it
I,
all. I've done like Pan Am's, Euros, like
yeah,
everything except the Olympics.
well,
Yeah, but yeah,
but well,
Nadia was my first. It was my first international assignment with Team USA.
yeah, it was super nice. I remember watching that, and I think it was also like the first World Cup in Portugal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I went in 2014 as well. I don't know if 13 was the first time they did it or not, but
I
yeah,
think it was.
yeah, with Hippolyto, it was also another inspiration of mine. Like, so yeah, I remember he was in the final. I think I did.
Yeah.
I think I fell in the final from what I remember.
Also, him like he was supposed to be at the 2004 Olympics, but he didn't qualify. In 2008 in Beijing, he was
The top,
the top favorite in the final,
that last
and then he
pass.
fell.
Yeah,
And in London, again, he fell in the qualifications.
yeah,
And in Rio, he was like, "Yeah, this is my chance." Yeah, he even said, like, quoting him, like, "I fell on my butt, I fell on my face, and then I fell on my feet."
yeah. No, he was such an inspiration. I'm so glad, obviously, in Rio. I can't imagine what that's like to finally get that moment in front of your home crowd.
Yeah.
It must have made everything he went through so worth it, just because it's all leading to that like moment and that like
Also
triumph.
competed in Varna, right? Did you compete in
Me?
Varna? Yeah.
Yeah. That was my first World Cup back with Bulgaria in Varna.
I forgot to add this question here. How was it to compete like
Mm.
home? Like,
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool. I felt because I had done European Championships, and then that was like kind of my second meet, and it was really cool. I really felt like I was embraced, because you're sometimes worried, with Bulgaria how people are going to react, but winning floor in front of like a home crowd, it was really cool. And like not only that, it was like having my family from like because a lot of my family still lives in Bulgaria, like having them there, that was like that meant everything.
that's nice. Eddie, thank you very much for the interview again.
Yeah.
And guys, please go follow him on Instagram. We're gonna tag him in our episode. Also, Carl from Axolips, and stay tuned for more.